Good morning, dear students. In this session, let us study the poem Enterprise by Eziekel. Enterprise by Eziekel was published in his 1960 collection of poems titled The Unfinished Man. The poem has six stanzas, each containing five lines. The rhyme scheme of each stanza is AB, ABA, and it continues throughout the poem without any break. The poem follows a group of people on a pilgrimage whose long trek begins with a strong sense of purpose but ends in devastation and disillusionment. The word enterprise means a big project or undertaking, and it is often used to talk about business ventures. It is strange then that the speaker also calls this a pilgrimage, a long trek towards a holy city or holy site. The spiritual connotations of the word pilgrimage imply that the people setting off on this journey are seeking some sort of deep fulfillment, but the earthly connotations of the word enterprise suggest that they are looking in the wrong place. The poem has various levels of meanings. It has surface meaning and deeper level meanings. Besides that, the poem is an allegory or a metaphor for a number of things. It is a metaphor for the journey of life itself. Secondly, it is a metaphor for India's emergence from the grip of colonial rule. And thirdly, it is a metaphor for the flaws of organized religion. Let us look into the poem in stanza first. It goes like this. It started as a pilgrimage, exalting minds and making all the burden lights. The second stage explored but did not test the call. The sun beat down to match our age. It started as a pilgrimage. A group of people assembled at one particular place. They wanted to reach a particular site of a pilgrimage center. They had an exalting minds. They are all upper class people. They wanted to go on a pilgrimage. They were light-hearted and easy-going people, exalting minds and making all the burdens light. They wanted to make their hearts very, very light. That was the first stage of their pilgrimage or journey. The second stage explored but did not test the call. The sun beat down to match our age. The second stage of the pilgrimage was explored, but it did not test the call of the time. Here the sun beat down to match our age. The scorching sun, the hot sun stands for the agony and the obstacles man passes through on his way to a pilgrimage site. Match our age. The expression match our age shows their enthusiasm. Rage never bogged down by the sun. They faced innumerable hurdles on their way, like the hot sun, the rage of the sun, but they were not discouraged. That is the second stage of their journey. They continue their journey ahead. In the second stanza, the speaker says, we stood it very well. The speaker is also a pilgrim. He tolerated all the obstacles. The pilgrims have tolerated all the obstacles that came on their way. We stood it very well. He thinks, observed and put down copious notes on the way to their pilgrim site. They observed so many things on the way. They took down the notes. They took down the copious notes. So here the poet very clearly says the pilgrims brave all the dangers which fall on their way, difficulties on their way. They spent money on ordinary things. They took down each and every detail of their journey. On the things the peasants sold and bought, they were much bothered about the materialistic things. Their mind was not prepared for the pilgrimage or spiritual journey. They were expected to be transformed from physical level to the spiritual level. But unfortunately, they are not able to transform themselves from the physical level to the spiritual level. That is why the poet very clearly tells us it is almost a materialistic journey. They are not able to leave their materialistic comforts. Their state of mind is at the physical level. The way of serpents and of goats, three cities were sage at thought. The way of serpents and the goats. These are the images used to describe less known paths they took, evil ways and lust instead of spirituality. These pilgrims are not on the way to their spirituality, they are still at the physical level. So they are thinking about the physical things. The serpents and goats stand for the evil ways, they stand for lust and other things. Three cities where a sage has taught. The three cities stand for money, lust for evil, sex consume man instead of the words of the saints. They are least bothered about the spiritual values propounded by the saints, but they are much bothered about the money, lust for evil, and sex consume their life a lot. So there is no transformation in their minds or hearts. They are still at the physical level, materialistic level. In the third stanza, the poet says, but when the differences arose on how to cross a desert patch, we lost a friend whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. A shadow falls on us and grows. As they move forward, as they go ahead, differences arise among the pilgrims. They will have the differences on various things. They had a difference on one particular thing, how to cross a desert patch. They come across a desert. The desert also indicates the uh, lack of spirituality in their minds. They came across a desert. Their hearts and minds were not fertile. On the way, they lost a friend, a best friend, whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. The best man was lost on their way. A shadow falls on us. So they felt disappointed. Pessimism sets in and it grows more and more. So the happiness, spirituality makes way for pessimism. They are not optimistic. They lose their hopes. The pilgrims reached another place. Another place was reached when we were twice attacked and lost our way. A section claimed its liberty to leave the group. I tried to pray. Our leader said, he smelled the sea. The pilgrims or the tourists reached another place and they were attacked twice and they lost their way. They lost their goal. They lost their destination because they were attacked. So they lost their concentration of the enterprise. Next, the speaker says, a section claimed its liberty, means the group which was united earlier got divided. One particular section claimed its liberty. It didn't want to follow the set norms. So a section claimed its liberty to leave the group. The speaker tried to pray. The speaker says, I tried to pray. Speaker prayed for divine guidance out of his helplessness. They wanted to be united. They wanted to reach the destination unitedly. But unfortunately, as they reached different phases of their journey, got divided. Differences arose. The group split into so many groups. So, because of his helplessness, the speaker prayed God to get them united again. Our leader said, East melt the sea. The group had its own leader. The leader expresses that East melt the sea. It means to say that he was keen on reaching the goal, feeding on the false hopes given by others. Still positive of reaching optimism. The leader is still optimistic, even though the group is divided into different sections. Even though some sections claim liberty, he was still hopeful. Sea is full of water. It represents optimism, positive thoughts. So a fraction of positive thoughts remains. The group disintegrates as they move from one phase to another. Next, the poet says, we noticed nothing as we went, a staggering crowd of little hope, ignoring what the thunder meant, deprived of common needs like soap. Some were broken, some nearly bent. We noticed nothing as we went. They continued their journey, even though there were differences, even though pessimism set in, even though they lost votes. A straggling crowd of little hope. The crowd is very, very irregular. Straggling is irregular, wandering, disordered people's group. They are not united. They are not thinking alike. They are not oriented to spirituality. They are very, very materialistic. They ignored what the thunder meant. The thunder means neglecting the message of God for deliverance. The thunder means give, sympathize, and control. They do not give, they do not sympathize for others, they do not control their emotions. They are ignorant of the spirituality. They do not know the values of spirituality, deprived of common needs like soap, some are broken. They were suffering from the want of ordinary things. They are not after spiritual values, but after ordinary things like soap, which they missed on their way. So some people were broken, disappointed, some nearly bent. They were not able to continue their journey. In stanza 6, the poet says, finally, when finally we reached the place, we hardly knew why we were there. The trip had darkened every pace. Our deeds were neither great nor rare. Home is where we have to gather grace. This is a very important stanza where the poet says, when the pilgrims reached the destination or the pilgrim center, they hardly knew why they were there. Even after reaching the place, they were not aware why they had reached that place, why they had set out to that pilgrim center. They have no purpose at all in reaching that place. That is only for enjoyment, not for spirituality. The trip had darkened every pace. The poet very clearly says the trip to the pilgrim spot or site had disappointed every pilgrim. They did not get what they wanted. It is very clear that they are not after spiritual values. They are after all for their for enjoyment, for so disappointment is written on their foreheads, on their every face or forehead. Disappointment is very clearly visible. So the poet says, "Our deeds were neither great or nor rare. The deeds of the pilgrims are very, very common, ordinary. Their journey lacked the enterprise, orientation. All the efforts they made were futile to reach the place. They were not really prepared for the pilgrimage, holy site. They realized grace or fulfillment can be found even at home, not elsewhere. Ultimately, the speaker realizes, if at all, if anybody wants to realize grace or fulfillment in his own life, home is the best place, not a pilgrim site like that. So the poet ironically talks about the journey. The value of pilgrimage lies not in moving away from home, but reaching home. He very clearly says, we cannot find salvation, grace, fulfillment away from home. If at all, if you want to find anything that is great, that is spiritual, that is grace, that is fulfillment, that can be found only at home and nowhere else. So the poet in the poem tries to tell us that Enterprise is a poem that calls for readers to focus on the journey of life itself rather than any specific destination. We should not focus our attention on any specific destination or on any specific pilgrim site, but we have to focus on our journey of life. The poem explores the way idealism gets cut down in the face of reality. The poem presents the contrast between idealism and reality. We are idealistic. We think that by visiting a pilgrim center, we get spirituality, we get enlightenment, our minds are widened, but practically that will not happen. That is the reality. So, idealism is not reality. They are the two faces. They are the two poles apart. They are not the same. Even with idealism, we may reach a particular place, but in reality, we do not reach the place where we are expected to reach. Though the pilgrims in the poem begin their trek with enthusiasm, if you look at the beginning of their journey, they are very, very enthusiastic. All the pilgrims are very enthusiastic. Their initial vigor, strength proves no match for the trials of the journey itself. On the way, they faces innumerable troubles. First, they face the hot sun. Even without bothering about it, they move ahead. But when they reach the destination, they do not get the fulfillment or the grace they had expected because they are not mature enough for that. The poem stresses the importance of noble character to achieve something noble. The poem very clearly stresses the importance of noble character. If at all, if you want to achieve something noble, we should be noble first of all. Our mind should be mature enough to reach that stage. Unless our minds are mature enough to that stage, we cannot achieve grace or fulfillment, and the journey becomes futile, waste. A journey to a holy place cannot change an individual unless he has the inner purity and strength of character. Just by visiting a holy place, we cannot change ourselves. If at all, if we want to have a change in ourselves, we have to change our individuality, inner purity, and the strength of the character is more important than the external journey. The struggle of the pilgrims on their way is really an enterprise. The pilgrims face innumerable problems on their way. It is really an enterprise, but they do not get the. That is what the poet tries to tell us in the poem. Thank you for listening. Let us see some multiple choice questions. Enterprise by Nissim Eziekel was published in his collection Unfinished Man. Exact name Hymns in Darkness, Later Day Psalms. The key Unfinished Man. The second question, the poem Enterprise is an allegory or metaphor for a journey of life itself. India's emergence from the grip of colonial rule, loss of organized religion, all the above. The poem Enterprise is an allegory or a metaphor for the journey of life itself. India's emergence for the grip of from the grip of the colonial rule, the loss of organized religion. The key is all the above. It is a metaphor or an allegory for the journey of life itself. India's emergence from the grip of colonial rule and the loss of the organized religion. The third question, when the pilgrims reached the holy place, that was their destination, they realized why they were there, that their deeds were great and rare, that the value of pilgrimage lies in moving away from home, that the value of pilgrimage lies not moving away from home but in reaching home. The key, the value of pilgrimage lies not in moving away from home but in reaching home. The poem follows a group of people on a pilgrimage whose long treks begin with a strong sense of purpose but ends in devastation and disillusionment, as an enterprise and ends in success, with happiness and ends in fulfillment, from home and ends in a temple. The key, the trek begins with a strong sense of purpose but ends in devastation. And the first phase of the journey of the pilgrims started as a pilgrimage, explored the burdens involved in on the way, was full of differences among them, began with their attempt to pray, started as a pilgrim. Thank you for listening.